So, welcome to the Digital Double Down Business Advantage podcast series with AliNICOLE WOW. That is me, and also the wonderful Rob Deptford. And we are your leading digital economy authorities, and excited to be bringing this podcast series to you. Our featured digital platform for this segment is going to be strataschool.com, and we are excited to share with you about being able to digitally double down, during this season. So, Rob, thank you. Of course, I'm glad that we're doing this series together.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me on to do this again with you. And I know we've got lots we could talk about, so we're going to do a few segments, I think, but we'll see what we knock out in this one, and it will all have value.
Absolutely. And you said the key word about value, because that is exactly what being in business is about, is being able to deliver value to the marketplace, but also value that comes with a divine right value exchange, so to speak, and that's the impact and income. And so, we'll talk about being able to double down. And something I just want to set this segment up with is that when we come forth, we don't necessarily have a planned agenda in terms of a topic focus. We see what emerges and how we can best serve you. But we do know that the overall objective is about you being able to focus on doing the double down and actually, the advantages, for that. So, all right, Rob, are we ready to kick this off here?
Oh, we're always ready, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Exactly. That's right. And what's the saying? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right?
I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, we've just got to be anticipating all the time.
Absolutely. And so there's always a state of readiness that you need to be in, which means that you have to have been preparing. And there's an old saying that your opportunity meets your preparation, or preparation, favors opportunity favors those who have prepared. So at some level, you've always been preparing. But there comes a time where you actually have to look and examine your preparatory journey, because maybe you've been preparing for some other things that you're not aware of. So it's kind of these little hidden nuggets. So that's kind of an area that people can start to double down, is to look at what you've already done in your digital economy, so to speak, and then look at what has worked, right? And then also there may be some things that you tried, and maybe they didn't work at a certain point, and it could be that there's the opportunity to come back and now sort of revisit that or rework it, and then double down in that area and see what, type of results you can get. Rob, your thoughts about that?
Well, I think, when we create something, just because it doesn't work the first time, as you say, sometimes it is worth revisiting, because things are changing so quickly, especially
Absolutely.
in the digital space, as we often talk about.
Right.
So what works today may not work tomorrow, but it may work again a month from now.
Exactly.
And so this is why we need to be always on top of things, and always testing, let's call it.
Absolutely. You should always be in a laboratory type of state of beingness as it relates to business and creating these different opportunities. You have to be experimenting and also understanding, like most do. We see those different posts or memes that give a depiction in terms of what the entrepreneurial journey is like, which is not a linear journey. It's not a straight line, for sure. And so sometimes there are seasons when you are cultivating, you're doing certain things in your business, and a lot of it could be very futuristic. And so when we look at things in a linear format, we think, I created this, I launch it, and boom. And then most of the time, entrepreneurs don't see things happen. But in a different, unique type of economy that builds in the digital space, is it does play more to the higher advantage, where it's the advantage that things are not linear, because they need the time to grow, or they need the time to, have that space. You develop them in one season, but then in another season, boom, you have a harvest. And you and I've had plenty of conversations about this, and even more recently about sometimes you plant during certain seasons, and then there's, of course, the harvest, and there's the time where you have to let things rest, so you come away, but then you can come back, and then there's something else that you need to do And then that's where being able to start doubling down is looking, I would say, not just one dimensionally at something, but being able to look at several aspects of it and double down in your sight in terms of what actually is here. So you don't look at it the same that you did before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, if we're using the gardening metaphor, I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes you plant and then a tornado rips up the field. So
Exactly.
there are things we can control and things we can't, right? So I
Right.
think I
Mhm.
think this is why we have to be willing to revisit the field, so to speak.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
sometimes those things we can't control are not necessarily the things that are going to be our ultimate demise. It just
Right.
means that we had something that was a disruption for a time.
Right, right, right. And disruptions sometimes that I have found within business, sometimes disruptions are divine. So they're very divine disruptions and the divine demolitions too, because even though you've created something and it seems to have gotten destroyed, so to speak, there's the opportunity to actually, if you want to call it build back or rebuild, to do it even better. Because sometimes we get in these patterns, right? These routines, and we just start doing things in business, and then sometimes if disruptions don't come, maybe they don't give us the divine detour that we need to maybe step away from it or to integrate something else that maybe we wouldn't have considered because we were just so head on, like traveling, right? So when you're traveling and you've already got your navigation system that's telling you to go this way, and you've got it all mapped out, and you go, I'm going this way. But then if, let's say, an accident happens or something, or a road is closed or whatever, sometimes you have to take a detour. You can take the detour and maybe it provided a more scenic route for you, or maybe it got you there faster, or maybe you ended up stopping at a rest stop somewhere or whatever while you're traveling, and you met up with a divine connection. So that's why sometimes we have to not be so focus oriented in terms of how this actually plays out, but you just have to do the things necessary. And if disruption should happen, then that's an opportunity to double down on looking at things that can be done differently, or maybe disruptions happen because you need to go out and be doing something else and then come back to it. So it's a lot to this, right, Rob?
Oh yeah, it's multifaceted for sure.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, we very much, our business aspects and branding should be much like a prism with the different facets, and being able to showcase different levels. And I believe, well, I know this to be true, that's been a primary struggle in the business world, is people have the one-dimensional focus and they're not allowing these different aspects of them to come forth. So let's segue a little bit and start talking a little bit more about the digital double down advantage in business. And even though all of this pertains to that, I think it was a good setup. But I'm kind of being guided to share something, Rob, from actually an article that I published on Medium. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it was an article that I published before the first of the year that was about the digital double down December business advantage, and about these magical windows of breakthroughs in 3 areas that you need to double down in. So so I'm not going to read the article, but like I said, I do want to reference it, and I'll have a link to this article within the description. There's 3 areas, no matter what time of year it is, that is good to be doubled down in these areas as it relates to your business. So they're the 3 Ds, the 3D. So there's discipline, there's development, and then there's discipleship. And so there's a few questions that I have here. It says, as it relates to your digitalpreneurship, and basically what you're discovering is, where do you need to practice more discipline? All right. And that could be obviously in what you're doing in your digital business. Where do you need to discipline yourself in more? And then the second one was, what needs to be developed, or where can you develop more? So that's important to look at what is developing, meaning what's developing in the business space, what's developing in your business, and then where can you start to, develop yourself even more. And then the third question is, where do you need to be a disciple or create your own discipleship experience? So basically that is talking about, what do you need to commit to in terms of this, being a disciple? Is there someone you need to sit under, or is there a product or a program that you need to kind of become a disciple of that philosophy for the moment or whatever? Or do you need to actually start your own discipleship experience? So should you be out there now, being able to, as an authority, have some people to come into your space and you are discipling them for the next level? So those are just some considerations. So what are your thoughts about those, Rob?
Well, I think they all make sense. Yeah, I mean, we can define them. We're all going to have maybe our own slightly different definitions of some of these things, but it doesn't. They're simple, right?
Right. Right. Exactly.
And so
That's
I
the
think people,
advantage.
yeah, I mean, I think people get held up sometimes because it can be so overwhelming, and
Right.
they feel like it's there's just too much work they have to do to keep up. But when you can simplify the process in this way, suddenly it becomes easy. So something like discipline, for example, well, maybe in the digital space, that's just, I got to be more aware of how frequently, or how consistently rather, not frequently, because that's different, how consistently I'm posting on Facebook or whatever, whatever your platform is, or YouTube, or, whatever that might be. Because there is some advantage in that. The return on
Absolutely.
investment is, now my audience knows when to expect that I'm going to show up. So,
Right. Right.
it's those little things, just
You're
paying a little
right.
bit more attention to them.
Exactly. That is perfect. And because it is in the simplicity, because that's how you actually maximize and leverage yourself through doing things in a more simplistic way, and not overcomplicating things. And so sometimes you can make one decision. And one of my formulas that I created and I use over the years is called the Leapfrog Success Formula, and it's define, decide, and do. All right. So sometimes you just define and get clear and concise about one little thing, right? And then you decide, make the decision, right? And then go ahead and get into to the action. And sometimes the action may be you need to pause. And maybe sometimes people have to double down in pausing. And let me make a quick distinction here in terms of the difference in maybe double downing and doubling up. Doubling up is mainly like, creating more massive momentum in a certain action, and you're doubling up on that effort. In terms of that, doubling down is you really just getting really committed. It's like doubling your commitment, not necessarily doubling your actions. Does that make sense, Rob?
Yeah, when I hear it, I think double up to me is a volume thing, like I'm
Yeah,
going to
it
do
is. Right.
more, and double down is a focus thing.
It absolutely is, right. And so when you get more committed to that and do focus in, even if it is something just, specific, it's just like you said, you're applying more focus. And the double downing and the doubling up, as you mentioned about the kind of the volume. And that's why I mentioned about creating more momentum. So maybe you are taking a little bit more action in a certain way, and you're doubling up on those efforts. And sometimes people do the double up because they want to get ahead of something, so they maybe do double work so that later on it pays off. But in all that, they both can be synonymous, so to speak. They both work together like a hand in glove. But the reason why the higher advantage sometimes comes in the doubling down, because you actually need to have that focus before you can start to kind of get to the lift off, the doubling up, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a process, as we've been saying. So,
Oh, yes, it's definitely that, for sure. So we talked about the discipline, and you made some stellar points as it relates to that. Do you want to hit on the development and the discipleship a little bit? Then we can, talk a little bit about some of what we have to offer in the areas that can help.
yeah, well, why don't you lead with the development, and then I'll jump in.
Oh, Okay, well, that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah. I just don't want to take over completely, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, so in terms of the development, which is really important, is that one of the things that we know is that you have to consistently be developing yourself. There is no such thing in entrepreneurship as you've arrived. All right. The minute we think that we've arrived at anything, so to speak, even a certain level of mastery, you're already doomed. If you think that you don't have to continue in the development. And sometimes, Rob, the development is in also not just paying attention to your development or the development of your business or brand, so to speak, but the development of the marketplace, because that's where people definitely fall behind in, so to speak, is that they don't know what's emerging. They don't know the developing, factors of things shifting with each era. And so when you don't pay attention to that and you don't actually develop yourself accordingly, then guess what? That's why a lot of what people want to see happen doesn't manifest for them. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the development aspect, because things that, you and I provide individually and collectively help to cover those areas of development of the marketplace, development of the business, and development of the brand, which that's like the holy trinity there of development. So you want to speak to that, or you want
Yeah, well, so you're right in that it's, again, multifaceted.
Mhm.
And the reality of today is that things are changing so quickly.
Right.
And so we really have to be on top of not only anticipating what's coming down the pipeline, but
Right.
being prepared to take that on. And maybe that does mean that we have to be leveling up a certain skill set, or maybe it does mean that our brand has to take a slight shift in direction,
Mhm.
or it has to show up someplace else. They're all things that, if we're not paying attention closely enough,
Mhm.
it can be so easy to fall behind. So we
Mhm.
have to keep our foot on the gas when it comes to that development piece, both personally and professionally, because
Professionally. Mhm.
for the business, that's one thing, right? And the brand, that's one thing. But
Mhm.
we sometimes forget that we ourselves are a piece of that. We're
Absolutely.
part of the brand. And people love that, by the way. People love when our brand is humanized. Those are the most successful brands that
They absolutely
have
are.
a face. So
Right. Right.
it all needs constant development.
It has to be. And the thing about it, even in the personal mastery aspect, is, continuing to develop. And this also goes into the discipline department, so to speak, is that when you are you and you bring yourself to the business, it's kind of one cohesive functioning in a sense. And if you aren't actually mastering, whether it's your inner game or different areas of your life, because you can have a business, the part of your business can be great, but if your personal life is kind of in shambles, then that could definitely be disruptive to how you show up in your business. So you want to make sure that you are doubling down. And again, as Rob so magnificently stated, in terms of it being a focus and you applying more focus and being just more intently focused, I should say, to what's going on. But going back to the development piece, is that we started out talking about, if you are ready, you don't have to get ready. And even though we will always be, quote unquote, getting ready for something, but it's like the readiness, the ripeness in the moment. And where does that ripeness come from? It comes from because you've prepared. That means you've been developing, right? But then you could also be now developing for something else. So when you were in college, you prepared yourself to go to college for that level, right? But then there's going to be the opportunity, if you go on to grad school or you go on to get the job, then you have to do the next level of development there. And even though you've prepared, that starts another journey. But what can you do now? So that's the thing about being able to be disciplined enough, but then now look at what is in development with myself on all levels, personal and professional, but also what's being developed in the marketplace, what's developing even with, I don't necessarily want to say problems, so to speak, but you do have to say, what are some developing concerns of the market. And this is a whole nother show that we could do on this particular one, even primarily with the coaching and consulting industry, you know, that some developmental things that have been happening there, because a lot, you know, has changed. So of course we could do a show on each of these, you know, points. So do we want to move on to discipleship really quickly? Is there something
Yeah.
else you would like to add to development?
No, that's I think I think the point is pretty clear. I think that development is something that is it has to be ongoing.
Right.
And it works with these other couple of points as well. So let's get into discipleship.
Okay, great. So, all right. So discipleship. So yeah, being able to know when it's your time to be doing, or if you need to be playing from both sides of the track. I believe that we are always being a disciple of something. And also too, we're some level, we're always discipling, even if it's not where people are actually being discipled under you in terms of you coaching, consulting, masterminding, however, is that when people see you on social media, you know, you don't know how many people you're mentoring that they're in a nonlinear way that you don't even know about that, right? But they're paying attention to you and they're actually watching you consistently, whether on YouTube or just how you're showing up. But sometimes there is the opportunity to create the space or an opportunity for people to actually come and be a part of something, or even if it's a product or a product in a group or however. But you just have to look at, you know, where do you need to be discipled yourself, and where should you be discipling? Because I think, Rob, you know, there's the opportunity consistently, as I mentioned, to play from both sides. But this is kind of a time where people do need to double down in this area and maybe focus on what they're going to, quote unquote, develop, you know, for this area. Because as you know, there are many people who have the ability to be great impact leaders, yet they're not stepping forward to do that. And so they've sat under other people. And when I say sat under other people, not necessarily in a formal capacity. It could just be that they've read their books and they've purchased their products and different things, but they're actually not taking the action to now be those leaders themselves. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, and when I hear you talk about playing from both sides of the track, to me, there's the old saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're probably in the wrong room.
You're exactly right, right,
Um,
right.
so there's that piece where you've got to find those thought leaders, those mentors that you are going to follow and learn from.
Right, right.
And then there's the piece of you've got to position yourself as a thought leader in your industry.
Exactly, right.
And if you may well be an excellent expert,
Mhm.
and many people are. They've got tremendous value and resources to offer in whatever capacity it might be, coaching, consulting, if you've got a product or a service or whatever it is. Maybe you're the best, but if nobody knows that,
Right, right,
then you're in trouble. So you've got to create the opportunity for people to follow you as a thought leader.
right.
And that takes stepping up and you know the development piece as well, of course, and all of these things coming together so that you have a presence
Mhm.
that is you know that people can discover.
Right. And that's a perfect area for individuals to consider doubling down on. And also those who have a presence, it's time to kind of double down on how do you maybe take that to the next level, because maybe you've had the same social media presence for a while and maybe it's worked for you to a certain extent. And I know that there's the saying, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But sometimes there's the opportunity where we do need to enhance, we do need to take things to the next level, because it could have a different appeal to another audience. There's always an emerging audience, and I teach from these two sides, is that you have, yes, your current target audience, your current market, so to speak, but there's always an emerging tribe that typically is being left out based on something that brand is not bringing to the marketplace, not bringing through the expression. But once they maybe incorporate or dial back a little bit on something, then they could see potentially more different segments of audiences that will come to them. So that's the advantage of being able to go through this trinity, so to speak, of being able to discipline, yourself, and to develop, and then be the disciple, and then do exactly what Rob mentioned, is that you need to have a presence. If no one knows about you, then what was all this development for? I mean, because most people in business, they're not just developing I read this great book and I took this product to just feel good about myself or enhance myself. But yeah, you engaged in that activity for what? So that you could be of value to others. I mean, I imagine that's why, right?
Yeah, well,
So
and
we do what we
incidentally,
do.
you don't need to be known like Tony Robbins
No, no.
or Richard Branson or Oprah Winfrey, or there are these huge names, right, that are bigger than their company brands, but you don't need to be known like that.
No,
I mean, if you are,
absolutely not.
terrific, if that works for you, but those people have spent decades and millions of dollars building those brands up, the personal brands included. But you just need to be known to your specific audience. So there are people who will listen to our conversation and go, well, who are these people, right? Like, we don't know. But for our target audience, as we create more of a presence in the different spaces where we play our game, then we start to become known to the people who are interested in what we deliver, the value
Oh,
that we.
absolutely. And that's and you said it perfectly. And that's what it's all about, because there are different celebrity brands in different departments and different sects, and so there's other worlds of that going on, which I play highly in that field, and you're part of that experience as well, in terms of you have your pockets of people, and that's who you sync up with, and they sync up with you, so to speak. And so it's not necessarily, like you said before, trying to do it on a scale that you see out there, massively, in a sense, because sometimes, Rob, I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes people think, well, who am I to do this? Or they think, well, I don't have this like that person does. It's like, it's not about that. It's about you being able to double down, in a sense, in what you're here for. And remember, everyone always starts somewhere. So, and even some people who didn't intentionally set out to be naturally known a certain way, it just kind of happens. And then some who intentionally set out to be that, it doesn't even happen for them. So it really just depends on what you're really here for. So something I want to do real quick, Rob, is to segue to talk about in terms of how we can help individuals during this time to start their digital double down and discover their advantages, because your advantages are going to come about as a result of what you start doing and how you're applying yourself, your beingness, so to speak. So it's not a one size fits all that you double down. Sure, there are fundamentals, just like what we laid out today, but we didn't give you a strategy of 3 steps to do X, Y, and Z. We just gave you, here are some core fundamentals that pretty much everybody is going to have to apply. But if I had to add another D to this factor at this point, it would go back to what I was saying in the leapfrog success formula. You have to decide. You have to make a decision, and deciding, and then getting into action, so to speak. That's going to be the biggest thing. Decide that you're going to double down, and you're going to discipline yourself and continue to look at development in all these different spectrums, and then look at where you need to, be a disciple or start your discipleship. So I mentioned that Strata School is the featured empire platform that we want to highlight during this time. And so there are blogs that are on that platform. But before I share the blogs, Rob, would you like to tell about Strata School? Because Rob is the president of Strata School. I'm the vice president. And so he can just share what the overall objective is. And then I can share a few of the titles that we have that can be of value to you and in other resources.
Yeah, Strata School really was created to bring together a group of experts in their field to share the value they have to help level up other people who are interested in some niche areas for
Mhm,
sure, but generally
mhm.
speaking, in business, right, and
Right.
in personal lives, and sort of branching out into different aspects of those things that are going to make you a more holistically successful
Mhm.
person or business. So
Right.
we've got a great group of people who've contributed,
Mhm.
in terms of blog articles and a number of conversational trainings and things like that
Mhm.
as well that are available. And yeah, it really is just to help people make that next step and level up and be prepared
Mhm.
for whatever the next thing is for them.
You're right. It is certainly a launching pad and the greatest place to level up and lift off and to be able to lead effectively too, because no matter, what your level is, you're leading someone at some point, and the best place to start is with yourself. And so a few of the blog post titles that I want to mention that are on the Strata School blog that will definitely help you as it relates to being able to double down digitally. First of all, you have to be aware of the times that we're in and the importance of the digital space, and educate yourself. So here are a few of the blog posts, and there'll be links to these blog posts below. And within those blog posts, there are also different offerings and opportunities too that you can see. So we're not just giving you information, so to speak. We actually have the next steps that you can take, but we'll leave that open to you to explore. So a few of the blog posts, there's a series, it's Got Digital. And so there's Got Digital, New Norms for New Times. So again, that's important that you understand the times that we're in. And then there's Got Digital, Aware, Awake, and Anchored. So that's important. You have to be aware, you certainly have to be awake, and then you want to anchor and plant yourself effectively in the media. Then we have Got Digital, Discover Your New Now Online Impact and Income Factor, which you're in business. So that's important, right? You want to make an impact and income. You can do both, you know, chew gum and walk. It is possible. So, and then we have Discover Your New Digital Alignment for Branding and Business Success Factor. And then also there's a blog post, Don't Downplay the Digital Business Space, Embrace the Benefits of Online Entrepreneurship. So that's important for especially people who are a little still in doubt and not really playing to their highest advantage. You need to discover what the benefits are and then double down in that area. And so we've got a couple of more in reference to becoming a digital nomad, a lifestylepreneur, but these are just great to get you started. And so we've shared quite a few because there's robustness here for you to continue to level yourself up at different areas. So this will cover the discipline, the development, and also the discipleship, because you can learn how you need to be effective as a leader, so to speak, within the digital space. So, all right. So, Rob, we have shared quite a bit to kick off this first segment here to help them get their digital double down on.
We have, yeah, this always happens to us. We have too much to talk about. So this is why we break it up into multiple segments, but there's a
Yeah.
ton of stuff here for people. Hopefully it's a good way to get started, and we've got more to come.
We absolutely do. We absolutely do. And like I said, this is a podcast series, and we want you to be able to get the maximum benefit from this series so that you have what you need to continue to take things, to the next level. Because one of the things, we hear quite often, and we'll wrap up here, is that people are always talking about, it's your time to do this. It's your time. It's always your time. It is always time, yes, for some level, but you have to find out what that level is. But there are things that you will have to do, and sometimes we will have to just simply yes, get in and do things, but we do have to find out where's our next level of play. So one of the things I know to be true, Rob, is as it relates to really doubling down digitally, is that there's always things, quote unquote, the to-do list, right? But
Yes.
I believe that when you create enough momentum, you then get into what I call the to be list, or what I get to do versus what I have to do. And sometimes it's as simple as, doubling down in that level of focus too, is that you want to be not in the business of doing, but in the business of being. So some of the discipline and development and even discipleship is sometimes you have to be a disciple under the vibration of beingness, business beingness, so to speak. And then you take the right actions that maybe you do your double down and focus, and there could be a season you do double up. So then you can get more into the beingness. My point in saying that is that when you read the articles and you explore what's on Strata School's site and what they have to offer, you're going to find, or discover, I should say, that from a holistic, perspective, is that when you double down in one area, you'll be able to kind of cross-pollinate that across other areas, and then you'll just be more well-rounded. But there's plenty of there for you to avail yourself to. So, Rob, of course, I always enjoy when we get together and have these powerful conversations to help add value to others.
Well, me too. And there'll be another one and another one.
And another one, exactly. It's like the development, or the Energizer Bunny, it just kind of keeps on going, right? In some formats, we have a series here. It won't end here, but we definitely want to just be intentional on you doubling down. So with that being said, we're going to bring this segment to a close. We certainly are looking forward to coming back and sharing more value with you. Our information is in the description, and should you need to reach out, we are available, and you will find that information there. So thanks again, Rob. And you have any last word, or are we great to go?
I think, as you said, we covered a lot, and we'll cover more in the next one and the next one. And looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, Rob. Of course, I always enjoy these, with you. And with that, we're going to close out and just empowering you and encouraging you to get your digital double down business advantage on during this time. And we'll be back with you soon. Take care.